I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 107, How to Make Decisions. Your life does not have to revolve around your husband's pornography addiction. You are not defined by his choices or by what he sees on a screen. You are not just the porn addict's wife. You are so much more. In this podcast, I'm going to teach you how to go from handling it to healed, because I've been where you are and you don't have to stay there. My name is Jolene Wynn. I'm a member of the LDS faith, a certified life coach, and a wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the porn addict's wife. Hello, my ladies. Happy Memorial Day. If you guys are listening to this on the day that it comes out, it will be Memorial Day. I'm recording it ahead of time, but happy Memorial Day. I love Memorial Day, and I hope you guys take a second to remember all of those who died for our country, men and women over the last hundreds of years, for all that they've sacrificed and their families, and to remember the loved ones in your life who have passed on. I love Memorial Day, and I think sometimes it can get a little lost in all the sales and all the hustle and bustle, but I'm excited to really dedicate this time on Memorial Day. This Memorial Day, I really wanted to take a moment and think more, have it be a little more reverent, right? When you think about remembering something, it can be more reverent than I think sometimes we make it to be. And while it's totally fine to have barbecues, and we're having a barbecue and things like that, take a moment, teach your kids, have them remember who, not only the people that you know personally that have passed on in your lives, but also to remember those who you don't know, the ones who are in our armed forces, who served and gave everything. A couple of weeks ago, I took my family to the Arlington National Cemetery, and that was the first time I had ever been there. And it was such a powerful experience to stand in these fields of just, as far as you can see, just rows and rows and rows of these beautiful white headstones. And it just was so humbling to be there and to reflect on all of the individuals who were real people with families and thoughts and feelings and lives and hopes and dreams and all of these things. And they gave everything, including their life, for our country. And that's just such a powerful and humbling place to be and to recognize that. And that's what I'll be thinking about on Memorial Day. We're actually doing a run. My twin sister, Christy, I'm so proud of her. For the whole month of May, she did I don't know what it's called. You guys, my brain is totally blanking right now. She did something special where she did 100 miles. She completed 100 miles in the month of May, and she's concluding it tomorrow on Memorial Day with a 5K run that we're starting off with a prayer. We're actually doing it with some retired Marines and some other members of our community to start Memorial Day off remembering our veterans and those who have lost their lives. And she's completing her 100 miles. You guys, it was such a big deal for her. And 100 miles in a month is, it comes out to about 3 miles every single day. That takes consistent effort. And if you ever miss a day or you go a little bit less, you got to make it up later. And it's just going to be such an amazing end to something that she did that was so powerful. And I'm so proud of her. And that's how we're starting our Memorial Day. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great Memorial Day. I just went off on a little tangent there. But I hope you guys have a wonderful Memorial Day. And today I want to talk to you guys about making decisions. Okay, so for the last couple of weeks, we talked about want dissonance, when you want more than one thing. Last week, I talked about indecision. And today I want to talk to you about how to make decisions. Okay, I'm just going to go through a little bit of a process here and talk about each step so that hopefully if you guys are struggling with something in your life, I want you guys to think about right now, what are you struggling with? If there's a decision that you want to make and you're not sure which to choose, or you want to do one way, but you haven't done it yet, then I want you to take that in mind and then apply the things that I'm going to talk about today, and hopefully it will help you make that decision. Okay. So step number 1 that I want to remind you guys is that you can always pivot later. One of the things that our brain does is that when we go to make a decision, our brain gets very stressed out and very nervous and very anxious about making this decision, and it puts a lot of weight and a lot of importance on the decision because our brain thinks that it will be permanent. Okay. Sometimes our brain has to be reminded that not everything that you decide is permanent. Okay. Sometimes our brain thinks that what we are deciding is concrete and that it can never be adjusted. So the very first thing that I want to tell you is when you are approaching a decision, I want you to remind your brain that you can always pivot later. Okay. Even the things that you think are super concrete, even marriage, you guys, so many people separate, so many people get divorced. They decide to do that later. Now, that's not what I'm not saying you go into that with that mentality. However, let's take something a little less extreme. Let's say you're trying to decide if you should move, right? This is a big one. People are like, I don't know if I should move or not. Here's the pros, here's the cons, here's all the things, right? I want two different things. I want to stay here, but I also want to move. I want to go there, but I also want to stay here. Okay. When you're thinking about making a decision, here's what I want to offer is that even with something as big, quote unquote, as moving, let's say you move and it's terrible. You can always move again. Okay, and again, sometimes our brain forgets this. Sometimes when we're deciding what school to send our kids to, or we're deciding whether or not we want to go back to school, or if we want to join this program, or we want to learn this new skill, sometimes our brain stresses out about making the right choice, and it thinks that it has to know 100%, because if it doesn't, then what? And I want you guys to actually answer your brain when it gives you that question, because it's not as concrete and as intense as it sounds. And when you go into it thinking, okay, this is for a lifetime, I have to make this decision, it's got to be the right one, there's so much more tension and pressure around that decision. So instead, when you're approaching this decision, I want you guys to be aware of your brain and remind your brain that you can always pivot later and that it's not permanent. And that's how you begin. Okay. The second thing is that I want to give you an example. I want you guys to practice acting on that decision. Okay, so this is going to take the last couple of weeks that we've talked about when you want more than one thing, when you get stuck in indecision. Okay, when you're actually making a decision and you say, okay, here's the one that I'm going to choose, you have to act on that decision. A lot of us get stuck here. I know it sounds super basic. You're like, well, of course I would act on that decision. Most of us don't. Okay, most of us don't act on our decision. Even when we think we've decided, oh, you know what I really want to do? I want to go back to school. And I think I'm going to do it. And here's how I would. Even when you get that far, your brain then often stops. Okay, and I want you guys to practice acting on your decision. When you, for example, let's say you decide, you know what? I am going to trust my husband again. Then what you need to do, even after you make that decision, is you have to practice it. Okay, sometimes we lose confidence in our own ability to follow through because we make decisions and then we go back on it. What you need to practice is actually following through. For example, with boundaries, okay? If you decide on a boundary, if you say, you know what, I want to have a boundary, here's what I want to have a boundary on, here's what I want it to look like. What I teach, and a lot with my clients, we go through this, is how to practice following through on those boundaries, acting on that decision that you made to set the boundary, because otherwise your brain starts to believe that you aren't very good at making decisions. And it's not that you're not good at making them, it's just that you're not good at acting on them. And acting on the decisions that you have made takes practice. Now, one of the things that I want to offer is that if you're really bad at this, you start with little decisions. Just start with small ones, okay? I have decided that I'm going to go to the grocery store today. And then you act on that decision. Okay, but do it consciously and say, see, I'm really good at making decisions. I'm really good at acting on my decisions. And then you do it with more. And you practice on the small ones. And then it's a little bit easier for your brain to practice on the bigger ones. Okay, now here's what's interesting. It's very difficult to act on your decisions when you are people pleasing. Okay, when you are behaving in such a way where you are trying to make everyone else feel better, or you are trying to be the person that you think you should be or that everyone else wants you to be, it's very difficult. Now, when you have done that your whole life and you start changing it, when you say, I don't want to be a people pleaser anymore, and you start to act differently, when you say, you know what, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z like I've always done. I want to do something different. I'm going to do something different. That's the decision. Then there's still the action that is required. And in those moments, when someone says, hey, you always do this for free, can you just do it for free again? And you no longer want to do that because you're not a people pleaser, then you have to actually act on the decision to no longer be a people pleaser and no longer do that thing for free. Okay, this is just an example. It's not that you can never do anything for free, but this is the examples. You have to actually act on that, and this is tough, okay? Even if nobody else understands your decision, if that's the decision you want to make for yourself, then you need to act on it. You need to have your own back. Nobody is going to understand it, and that's okay. They don't have to understand it. But if you are trying to people please and you're trying to be the person that everyone else thinks you should be, then you're going to have a really hard time here, because if people don't understand your decision making and they don't understand why you would do that, then you're going to want to revert back to how you've been doing it before, and you're not going to want to act on the decisions that you've made. Does that make sense? This is huge. So many of you are so worried about what others will think, or you want their agreement, and it prevents you from following through on the decisions that you've made because you're so afraid of what other people will think about it. And I want to offer to you today that that's fine, except that usually what that ends up happening is it leaves you completely miserable because you're not doing the things you want to do. You're doing what you think other people want you to do. And you're not actually living the life that you want to live. You're not following through with who you are. You are kind of just morphing yourself into who you think you should be. So practicing acting on your decisions takes a lot, especially if you're really worried about what other people are thinking. And what I want to offer is that rather than worry about what other people are thinking, I want you to reflect on what you're thinking. What will I think of myself if I follow through with this or if I don't? And you practice it. And you're not going to be perfect at it, and that's totally fine. Every single day you practice making decisions, reminding yourself that it's not permanent and you can always change your mind later, and then acting on those decisions, following through and having your own back, even if nobody else understands. Okay, step number 3. Okay, so step number 1 is actually make the decision. Okay, step number 2 is act on that decision. Step number 3 is to reevaluate. And most of us forget this. Again, most often because our brain thinks that the decisions that we make are permanent. And so it thinks, okay, I just need to make this once and then be done. Many times that can be the case, and that can be super helpful. But a lot of times I want to offer that you reevaluate. Okay? Take note of decisions that you've made and make sure that they're still working for you and that they're still what you want. Okay? So many of us forget this. Again, because we think that the thing that we decided one time is how it always has to be. Well, I decided to homeschool, and so now I just have to continue to homeschool because I decided that once. Sometimes that works, but sometimes you have to reevaluate. Sometimes you say, okay, is this still working for me? Is it still working for me to be a full-time employee? Is it still working for me to be the one my mom always calls every single day? Is it still working for me to have this relationship with my son in this manner? Is it still working for me to trust my husband? Is it still working for me to not trust my husband? It is up to us to reevaluate the decisions that we have made so that we can either continue to remake the same one or make a different one. Okay? Just because you decided it once doesn't mean it is something you have to stay with forever. Okay, think about this as like changing hobbies. I have a lot of different hobbies, things that I've gone into and changed a billion different times. Okay, not everybody is like this. Obviously, I do this with my hair all the time. I change my hair all the time. You guys don't know this because for the last 3 years, I've actually hadn't changed my hair, but we're on the hair changing trend again. Okay, a couple weeks ago, 2 months ago, I dyed my hair bright red. And now I have brown hair with dreadlocks again. Okay, so I changed my hair a ton. I am very used to remaking decisions. Don't want to do this anymore. And I know that this is a small example, but ladies, this is such a good example because again, so many of you guys say, and so many people I meet, I would never have the guts to do that. You guys, the thing that I say when I change my hair is, hey, if I don't like it, I can always change it. And then I reevaluate and I say, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Let's try that. Okay, and again, it might seem like a really simple example, but this is how you can make decisions with many things. Is this job still working for me? Do I still want to be in this position? Yes or no? Is it still working for me to be a stay-at-home mom? Maybe I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. Maybe that's not working for me anymore. A lot of moms do this, especially when their kids go back to school. They reevaluate. Is the decision to stay home still something I want to do? Do I want to go back to work? Right? I know that during COVID, so many of us reevaluated so many things in our lives. And I really think that that's a really valid and important thing that we can do. So many of the systems and so many of the patterns that we had gotten into before COVID hit and suddenly we reevaluated. Things shifted. Things weren't working. Now we have to reevaluate and remake that decision or choose something else. I really want you guys to take this opportunity to reevaluate every decision in your life. And I know that might seem overwhelming, but start with things that are fun. Do I still enjoy this hobby? And if not, what else would I love to get into? Hobbies are a really fun one for you to start. If you guys want to start somewhere, reevaluate your hobbies. Do I really love to read? Do I really love to go shopping? Do I really love to go out to eat? Do I really love to go to the movies or bowling? Or do I want to start rock climbing? I have a client who plays pickleball. I think that's the coolest thing ever. I've never even heard of pickleball until I heard her playing it. And it's something she recently did. Reevaluate, ladies. It is so fun to do, and you might even find something better. Okay. Another example I want to give you guys is my husband's job. So when Rob was in dental school, he came to me, he was in his 3rd year and he was super depressed and it was a terrible situation. And he said, I want to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. And I said, great, that's totally fine. What's your plan instead? And he didn't have one. And I said, okay, well, how about until you come up with plan B, we just stick with plan A? Because right now your plan A, as terrible as it is, there is no plan B, right? It's just quitting and then we have nothing. So, let's see if we can just keep going. And it got better, right? You guys know his story. He eventually got the mental help that he needed and it, got better. But here's what I want to offer is that he doesn't love being a dentist, right? That's why he started coaching. Now, if he hadn't been willing to sit down and say, what do I really want? What do I not want? What decision do I want to make? And then been willing to act on that decision, he still wouldn't be coaching to this day. And he is. He was willing to reevaluate. At one point, he decided to become a dentist, and then he reevaluated and he said, is that what I really want? Guys, this is so cool, but he stopped working he still works 3 days a week as a dentist, but in Thanksgiving of last year, we retired him from working full-time as a dentist, and now he works 3 days because I am working, he is now coaching, and we were able to reevaluate, and he was able to say, you know what? I no longer want to be a full-time dentist. Okay, now I know that not everybody gets to do that with your job, but even a job is something that I want to give you guys permission to reevaluate. Is that still what I want to do? Or did I just do that because that's what I thought I was supposed to do? Is that still what's working for me and my family? And if not, what would I rather do instead? Reevaluate. Just because you paid a lot of money for school, just because you made that decision once when you were 19 and you have your bachelor's degree and then you went to school for it, doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. Just because you've been doing it for years doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. There are so many things that we just continue to do because we made the decision once, and I want you guys to reevaluate and really look at it. Okay? After you reevaluate, step number 4 is to pivot or redecide. I kind of covered this a little bit just now, but those are the 2 options. You can either recommit and redecide that this is the way that you want to go, or you can pivot. You can change your mind. Did you guys know this? It doesn't mean anything. A lot of times we want to resist changing our mind or pivoting because of what we think it means. It means we're flaky. It means that we can't complete things. It means that we're terrible at making decisions or following through, or we're not reliable, or whatever it is that we think that it means. And it doesn't mean anything. All it means is that you made a decision once and now you want to make something else. Okay? And you can redecide if it's working for you, or if you want to keep it, you can do so. But I want you to do it intentionally. Redecide to be a stay-at-home mom. Redecide to be a working mom. Redecide to be committed to your career. Redecide to stay in your marriage. Redecide to trust him or to not trust him. Redecide to love yourself. Redecide that you want to improve yourself. Whatever it is, you can redecide it. So here's a couple of questions, ladies, that I really want you to consider. And I really want to encourage you to do this exercise at the end, because otherwise this is just a whole lot of me talking and it doesn't really do anything. Ladies, it's the application of what you hear on this podcast that makes the change in your life, not just hearing it. Hearing it is great and it's going to get you a little bit, but applying it is what's really going to change your life. So here's an opportunity, okay? What are you not deciding? Where are you stuck in indecision? That's what I want you to focus on right now. What are you not deciding? Where are you vacillating back and forth? Where are you saying, well, I would, but I wouldn't, but these are these pros and here's are these cons and I can't decide. What's in your life that you can't decide? That's what I want you to think about. Where in your life are you allowing indecision to decide for you? If you can't decide which gym to join, which program to join, which school to send your kid to, what program to send your kid to over the summer, whatever it is, whether to trust him or not, what area of your life, where are you allowing indecision to make the choice for you? That's what I want you to focus on right now. And I have a challenge for you. I want you to pick that thing, that area where you're stuck, and I want you to make one decision today. Okay, you just have to pick. Today, you give yourself 5 minutes. Set a timer on your phone. At the end of 5 minutes, I want you to have that choice made. And then you have to act on it. And that's the key. Ladies, so many of us, like I said, sit in indecision, allowing that to make the choice for us. And today, I want you to change it because you can. Today is the day that you practice. You give yourself 5 minutes, you make a choice, and then you have to act on it by the end of the day. Now, that might not look like completing whatever task it was, okay? If you're deciding to trust your husband, if you say, okay, I can't decide whether to trust him or not at the end of 5 minutes, you make a decision. Whatever that looks like, it means to act on it. If I decide to trust him, what does that mean for me today? Does that mean that I don't look at his phone today when I feel the urge to pick it up off of his nightstand? Does it mean that if I decide not to trust him, does that mean that I just allow myself to feel distrust? Maybe that's what that looks like, acting on it. It means allowing myself to feel distrust when I think about it, okay? There are so many things that you can do once you make this decision, and I want you to pick one action that you can do today. If you decide, you know what, I want to go back to school, then I want you to act on it today. Look up some programs. Just research, Google it, whatever it is that you want to do. If you decide I no longer like this hobby, I no longer want to do it, sell all this stuff on Facebook. Whatever it is, I want you to decide and I want you to act. And that's my challenge for you. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck feeling like you're living a life that's not truly yours because you're not allowing yourself to make decisions. You're not giving yourself permission to move forward the direction that you want to go. And if your life right now is not where you want it to be, and I know it's not because you're listening to this podcast, then this is how you change it. You start with practicing. If you want help practicing, I want to invite you to come coach with me, and I will help you apply this and work through it in your life. Because the difference between where you are right now and where you want to be is so small, ladies. All it takes is making decisions and acting. And you can totally do it. I love you, ladies, so very much. Happy Memorial Day. And I'll talk to you next week. So take care. All right, ladies, if you are loving what you are learning on the podcast, I want to invite you to come join my coaching program. This is where we take it to the next level and we actually start applying and learning the how of moving forward. This podcast has taught you the what, and the coaching program is where you're going to learn the how. This is where you learn how to actually start moving forward, process all of that pain that you feel, and let it go once and for all. If you are ready to finally move forward and stop living a life that revolves around your husband's pornography addiction, then I want to invite you to come join me today. Just head to my website, joleneWayne.com, and sign up today. I can't wait to see you there.